Japan was shaken once again, a kind of deja vu moment. The Prime Minister was the target, but thankfully Fumio Kishida escaped unharmed after a man threw a smoke bomb during an election campaign. The country has bolstered security after the fatal attack on the former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe during an election campaign last year. The recent incident also casts a shadow on the G7 foreign ministers meeting, which is beginning tomorrow in Japan. Watch this report for more details.
Chaos, confusion, and explosion. Crowds flee the spot as several police officers pin a man to the ground before removing him from the scene. This is Japan's Prime Minister Fumio Kishida standing at the scene before a loud explosion causes panic. Crowds ran away screaming. The suspect threw a smoke bomb at the event held at the Saikazaki fishing harbor, which is located 65 kilometers southwest of Osaka City. The suspect has been identified as a 24-year-old man from the Hyogo region. A probe is on to identify his motive. The Prime Minister was evacuated unharmed from the scene. Later in the day, he also attended a campaign event east of Tokyo. Kishida appeared in good spirits and didn't mention the earlier incident. He spent some time greeting members of the public despite the rain.
But what we do know is that he allegedly threw a 20 to 30 centimetre pipe, or it's been described as a cylinder, towards the Prime Minister's stage. The Prime Minister at this time had not started his speech yet. He was still speaking to a local party candidate who he was campaigning for. It landed apparently about a metre away from the Prime Minister.
Although no one was hurt during the earlier incident, the chaotic scene was reminiscent of the assassination 9 months ago of former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. Incidentally, that also came on a campaign tour and continues to reverberate in Japanese politics.
安倍首相の時もそうですけど、本当にまたこんなことが起きちゃったかと思って、びっくりしました。警備がすごくね。なんか同じような事件がね、安倍さんの時から今回の岸田さんに続いているので、やっぱり街頭演説のあり方そのものがもう見直されてるんじゃないかなとは思いましたね。はい。まあとにかく岸田さんが無事でよかったとは。
Abe, the longest-serving leader of modern Japan, was assassinated with a homemade gun last July while campaigning for a parliamentary election, shocking the nation and prompting a review of security for politicians. Now this security scare comes just a day before foreign ministers of G7 nations will be sitting down for a meeting in Japan. There are mounting concerns in wake of the incident. Tokyo says there would be no change to the security plan for the G7 meeting starting on Sunday in Karuizawa. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Now, for more on this, we were earlier joined by Professor Benoit Hardy-Chartrand, who is an East Asian geopolitics and security analyst and an adjunct professor at the Temple University. Listen in to what he had to say.
Well, at this point, we don't have many details. It's only a few hours after the incident happened. As was the case last year when former Prime Minister Abe was shot, details are expected to come in within the next few hours, possibly the next couple of days. But given how high profile, of course, this incident is, given how on the edge people are and politicians are in Japan, I think it's not going to be very long before the authorities, before the police does connect, or does rather communicate some of the detail that they will have found out about the suspect. No, absolutely. Last year, when former Prime Minister Abe was assassinated, it was a shock to the whole country, even for people who did not support the Prime Minister. We have to understand that political violence in Japan has not been a regular occurrence. In fact, it has been decades since we had major example or instances of political violence. So that's why when former Prime Minister was killed last year, it came as a major shock, and the most Japanese politicians were expected to adopt or adapt the way that they campaign in order to reduce the chances of such events, such attacks happening. So now, less than a year after the attack on Abe Shinzo, this attack now on Prime Minister Kishida is going to be, I would say, an additional wake-up call for Japanese politicians. But the way that it was handled seems to have been pretty good so far, based on what we saw, based on the footage that we saw. But of course, it is quite a scare in a country that is certainly not used to this kind of violence.
WION, now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.